Welcome back. This is part 2 of our ADIAT version 2.0 launch spotlight. And this one's going to focus on the image viewer experience. So I've actually gone ahead and exited out of ADIAT and come back into it. Again, this is the new landing page you will see when you launch ADIAT, asking if you're interested in doing streaming analysis or image analysis. In our case, we're going to say image analysis. And because we're focusing on the viewer now, I'm not actually going to start a new image analysis process. I'm going to say I'm reviewing existing image analysis. So we click on that. It asks us to select the XML file from our results. So we'll go into Output, ADIAT Results, and click on the XML file and say Load Results. And that will take us directly into the viewer. I'm going to go ahead and close that just for a second so you can see behind the scenes. We still have our image analysis setup window here, and we can get to the same place by running analysis and then clicking view results. So we're going to do a full tour of the image viewer now, starting up here in the top left where we still see our image name and where we are in our result set. So this is image 1 of 43. You'll see there's a new help button here because there are a whole slew of tools available now in the image viewer that haven't been here in the past. So the help will be a real-time refresher of what all is up here. And again, just like we were seeing in the main window viewer, almost all of these should have tooltips on them now to show you, hey, this is what this does and what it provides. So beyond our image count here, our help button, we have our show overlay option. This was introduced in the previous version of ADIAT. This controls this little overlay down here, which, if the information is available in the image metadata, will show you the camera orientation as well as the estimated ground sampling distance. We can go ahead and turn that on and off as needed. I'm going to skip the rest of these tools for now because we're going to go into each one of them. But first, I want to do a full tour of what we see in the main viewer here. So skip hidden, we have the ability to hide images in the result set. So if we're on an image, we can go ahead and click the hide image toggle here, which will turn that one off and move us to the next one. We can also use the down arrow or other keyboard shortcuts to hide individual images. We can still go back to them by clicking on them, and then we can decide to unhide it using either the toggle, the key, or keyboard shortcuts. And as you see up here in the top, that gives us a counter of how many images have been hidden. And if we turn that off, first, while it's on, let's go ahead and select one a little further out here, hide that. We'll see as we're just going from image to image, previous and next, again, using the keyboard shortcuts, same thing as using the buttons down here, it will skip that image that has been hidden. If we turn that off, then as you would imagine, when we click next, it does go ahead and take us to that image, even though we have hidden it. Next, we have our areas of interest over here on the right. So we have how many areas of interest are shown below, as well as now a new filter capability. So some of these filters will make more sense here in a minute, but we can filter by AOIs, areas of interest that have been flagged, ones that have comments. We can look for patterns in those comments. We can filter by color. This result set was based on color range, so we're probably not going to want to filter it further. But as you can imagine, there's probably going to be scenarios where you're using anomaly detectors like RX anomaly or MR map, where we want to further refine in our result set, only looking for specific colors. So we can go ahead and set a color-based filter here. We can filter by area size, and if we're using thermal images, we can filter by temperature range. We can also sort our areas of interest now by pixel area, by confidence score where appropriate, by color closest to the target. So this one's important for color range. So as you know, we set ranges for these, so we can go ahead and do sorting based on some sort of scoring mechanism where things that are closest to the base color we selected will be prioritized and put at the top of the list. Or we can do by left to right, top to bottom. When we look at the area of interest itself and what is shown here, we see we have our position up here, we have our area in pixels, we have our hue, which again, going back to HSV, gives us kind of just a rough idea of what the most common color was in that area of interest. We can also see the RGB hex value here. And we have the ability to now flag and comment on individual areas of interest. So we're often going to run into scenarios, especially with the anomaly detectors, where an image may have 10 areas of interest in it, and we really only want to flag one of those, and we only really care about one of those for reporting purposes and mapping purposes and other things like that. So rather than say, hey, this whole image has areas of interest in it, but we don't specifically say which of the areas of interest are important to us, we can go ahead and flag them now and say, hey, this one has something of interest to me. Let's go back to one like this, which has multiple areas of interest, and say, no, we weren't looking for this shirt for whatever reason. We're only looking for this one. So we can flag this first one, not flag this one. We can also go ahead and put comments in here. Again, this will show up in some of the reports and things like that, where we're just providing more information to whoever we're handing this off to, saying, hey, I found this blue object. It looks a lot like what was described as the color of the shirt the subject was wearing. We can put all that in our comments here. We also have the ability with this balloon here to generate an estimated location for the actual area of interest. Now, I want to be very clear here. This is an estimated location. We are using the information based on the drone location, based on the above ground level altitude provided by the drone, and the GSD, the ground sampling distance. There's a lot of variables there that could impact the accuracy of this. So, things like elevation change on the ground and, oh gosh, so many other things, the AGL not being accurate, all those things come into play. So we're providing this as an estimated position to get teams into the right area in the best of circumstances. We would love to be able to pinpoint like an orthomosaic image and say, hey, this is exactly where this is, but there just isn't enough information in a single image to allow us to do that. We have to start downloading elevation profiles and all sorts of other things to get to that level of detail, and it's just not something that we support at this time. But we will provide the estimated location here, and as you see, there are some options for what we can do with that information. We can copy that coordinate, we can open it directly in Google Maps or in Google Earth, we could send it to someone through WhatsApp or Telegram, and on we go. Down here at the bottom, we saw our hide image capability already. We saw our previous and next navigation, and we can also jump to a specific image. All this was existing functionality in ADIAT. We have our image toolbar down here at the bottom, or thumbnail bar here at the bottom, where we can navigate to any image in the result set as well. Down at the very bottom, we have our information bar. So we have our GPS coordinates for the overall image, much like with the GPS coordinates up at the top. We can copy those, or we can open that in any of these programs automatically. We have our relative altitude. Again, that's just coming off of what the drone tells us. If this information is available, if the image for whatever reason doesn't have some of the metadata we need, these values, as you would imagine, are omitted. We have the gimbal orientation and our estimated average ground sampling distance. As I start to mouse over the image, you'll see that per pixel, we're providing the RGB values down there at the bottom and the actual cursor position in the image itself. Rest of the capabilities that you're probably familiar with from previous versions of ADIAT, so we can click, drag, and zoom in through that mechanism. We can pan by clicking the right mouse button, and we can zoom in and out by scrolling with the mouse wheel. Now, let's start talking about some of these fun things up here that we haven't seen before. And again, all this information is also up here. If you click on the question mark, that'll open the help pop-up, but let's go through them one by one. First is probably actually the coolest new feature in the viewer, at least while staying in the viewer context. So this toggles us between single image mode over here with areas of interest and gallery mode. And what that does is it brings in all the areas of interest from all the images, so you don't have to go image by image looking at all of the areas of interest one by one. You can go into gallery mode by clicking on this up here or pressing the G key, and that'll open this pane, which you can expand and collapse depending on your needs. And that way you can very quickly go through all the areas of interest identified in all of the images. Super helpful when you have large result sets, especially when you're doing anomaly detections, when you're going to get a lot of false positives. And you can very quickly go through the images and eliminate ones that aren't of interest. Down here in the corner, you can go ahead and flag the area of interest, and we can go ahead and get the GPS coordinates through the balloon just like we did in single image view. If we want to see where this is in context, we can go ahead and click on the area of interest and it will automatically jump over to that image for us. So now you see it moved over to image 25 here. We can go ahead and zoom out, see in context. If we move to another area of interest, same thing, moves us to image 33 in this case. So just a very efficient way to quickly go through all the areas of interest in the result set and really where some of these things like sorting and filtering shine, because now we can filter against the entire AOI result set instead of a single image. So incredibly awesome, incredibly helpful as you're going through this. And I should point out, I'm calling it incredibly awesome because I didn't build it. This is one of the things that John O'Keefe provided and built into ADIAT. So I'm really saying thank you to John when I say it's incredibly awesome. I'm not saying something I built is incredibly awesome. So thank you very much to John for building this and introducing this to ADIAT. I've already used it on multiple searches as we've gone through the beta testing and has been a huge time saver. So incredible capability, really honestly changes how I use ADIAT and makes it way more efficient to comb through large image data sets. Let me swap back over to single mode. So again, I press the G key or I click on the button up here and that switches which one we're in. So we're back to single image mode. And our next two icons, so we have the dots here. This is show pixels of interest. So if I click on that and I zoom in, we'll see, toggle that on and off. We'll see the actual pixels that the algorithm picked up as being a match or within range. Certainly helpful as you start to understand how ADIAT is doing its thing. So you'll see this and say, oh wow, it really didn't capture all those pixels, even though it's all part of the same shirt. So really exemplifies just how finicky color matching can be in a computer just because of the variability of lighting conditions. Even though this is a solid color t-shirt, it only picked up a handful of pixels in that shirt as being in our color range. Next is our ability to turn the AOI, area of interest circles, on and off. So as you see, the circle comes and goes depending on what we do there. Next, we have our new map view. So this helps provide context for where images are in the greater sense. So let me go ahead and open that, and we can see some dots here representing images that have been hidden, these gray dots, images that we haven't really reviewed yet, the blue dots, and images with flagged areas of interest, the red dots, and the current image we're on, the orange dot. We can swap between this view, it's actually a tile view, we just happen to be really zoomed in, or we can swap over to a satellite view. We can zoom in, we can zoom out, we can fit to screen, all those great things. If we want to go back to a specific image, we can click on it here and it'll bring it up in the viewer behind us. If we click on an area of interest here, it will show you the approximate location, again, based on that estimated location information that we talked about earlier. So awesome tool, again, one of the ones that John built for us and provides a lot more contextual information. Not only are you seeing the image, you're seeing where the image was taken, which direction you're facing, all those things in context. Now, this may bring up some questions. This is the first feature introduced in ADIAT that has an internet connection dependency. One, it'll still work without the internet connection. You just won't have the tiles. Two, if we go, and I'm going to go ahead and close out of all this. Sorry, we're taking this out of context here. But if we close out that and go up to our menu in our preferences, there is an option for offline only mode. So if you're with a department or an agency or something where you're not comfortable having an internet connection in the tool, go ahead and toggle that on, and that will sever that connection. So we won't be pulling tiles, we won't be providing any information or pulling anything from the internet. We're back to offline only mode at that point. But for our purposes, we'll leave that on right now. Again, if we go into our map view, we see all that great information about all the images we've taken, and we can look at individual areas of interest in the viewer as well, or in the map view as well as context about the greater result set and images that contain areas of interest that we have already flagged. Next, we have our north orientation option. So what this will do, again, it kind of gives you that contextual information. So it'll take this image and give you a rotated view so you understand what it looks like in context. So if you're trying to marry up what you're seeing in ADIAT to what you're looking at in Google Earth or whatever satellite map viewer you're looking at, it orients things the right direction for you so that you can see it and not have to turn and rotate and do all those things to try to align things that will give you the right direction of orientation on its own. Next, we have some image adjustment options. So if you're in a scenario where, let's say, something's in the shadows, we want to increase the exposure, we can do that directly in here. It's not going to save it anywhere. It's just for doing real-time minor image manipulation to just get a better view of what's going on in the image. So some standard adjustments you can look at here and go ahead and set those as you see fit and play around with it and see what the different ones do and where they may be applicable to your use cases. Next, we have our measuring tool. Let me zoom out a little bit here. So we have our two areas of interest down here. That's what we're trying to get. Let's say I wanted to see how far apart those were. I can use our measuring tool. We have our ground sampling distance here. If for whatever reason you need to override that, you can do that in this text box. And then we just click on the 2 points and it'll tell you how far apart those are in your preferred measurement unit. So, okay, now I know those are about 25 feet apart. Great. I can provide that information. Or let's say the second one wasn't here and the team was just asking how far off the trail is the, sorry, I'm going to turn that back on. How far off the trail is the area of interest? And we can tell them, yeah, it's about 16, 17 feet off the trail to the right side as you're heading towards the creek in this case. Next, we have our magnifying. So again, if you don't want to zoom in and out, we can go ahead and turn on the magnifying glass, and then we can mouse over areas of the image and we'll zoom in just in that magnifying glass sort of view there, making life easier and making it faster to quickly zoom in and out of specific regions of the image. Go ahead and turn that off. You can click on the mouse wheel for that one and that will toggle it on and off as well. So again, you don't even need to go up to the toolbar. You can do it directly from your mouse. Then we get into our exports. So let's actually go right to left on these. So the first one here is our zip export tool, and we have some new options here. So as I mentioned in the previous video, we're not storing the augmented images by default anymore. We're just storing the TIFF information, the mask information about where the anomalies or detections are. So we have some options here. Do we want to export essentially that, which is the original files, plus the TIFFs, plus the XML, so basically the result set so that somebody else can take a look at it? Do we want to actually export the augmented images similar to what we typically had in the output folder in previous versions of ADIAT, so the actual augmented images with the areas of interest circled on them. And then finally, do we want to only include images without flagged areas of interest? So the thought is that as you start to use the flagging system for the areas of interest, chances are as you're doing exports, as you're doing reports, you're only going to want to include those areas of interest. We still have the option in here, hey, I didn't have a chance to flag the areas of interest, so go ahead and include all the images that are not hidden. So still won't include the hidden images, but include the ones that don't have flagged areas of interest in them. In the middle here, we have our PDF generator. So if we click on that, we have some new information that we're requesting here. So again, this is all kind of trying to make the report look a little more official. So we allow you to provide your organization name. You can provide a search name, or in my case, I just said which algorithm I'm using. And again, we have the option to include images without flagged areas of interest. So I'll go ahead and run that. Let that run. We have the progress bar, it tells you what's going on, generates the PDF, generates the table of contents. Go ahead and say OK. And let me bring up that report. So this is the new report. So we have embedded the map in it, so that same sort of visualization that we had with the GPS map in the viewer, we include that in the report now. So we see in context where our areas of interest are, where the images were with flagged areas of interest in them. And if we had included images without flagged areas of interest, those would be shown as well. We have our algorithm settings and our individual images in the table of contents. Same as before, algorithm settings tells you all the information about what we were looking for. And then down in the actual images, we have the north-oriented image now, and it is zoomed in automatically to the area of interest. So what we're seeing in the original reports that we had from previous versions, these images were so tiny that it really didn't give you the context of what it is we were looking at or where it was. So now, even if we have the same image in here multiple times, or we may have the same image in here multiple times if it has multiple flagged areas of interest, but it'll show up like this with the main image here, and then to zoom to in views of the actual area of interest that's being called out. We also include the GPS coordinates, not only of the image, but the estimated area of interest, GPS location as well, the pixel area, and that color information like we were including before. If we had included comments, those would show up here as well. So again, a much more functional report than in the past, something that's really actionable for teams. If we hand this off, we're telling them the approximate location of the actual area of interest. We're showing them where it was in the actual image, and we're providing the map overview there at the top. That gives them more context about where this was in relation to the search area. Lastly, in our exports, we have our map export feature. So if we click on that, we have a couple of options now. First, we have our KML file export, and we have the opportunity to include drone/image locations, flagged areas of interest, coverage area, as well as the option to include images without flagged areas of interest. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that one off and hit export. And let's provide a file name. PDF. And we'll see it starts that export process, exporting the locations of not only the images, but since I left it flagged, the areas of interest and the coverage areas. So if I go find that file and open that in Google Earth, bring that over, we'll see that what it includes. So as I said, we include a coverage extent, which gives us a view of, hey, here's where those actual images are and the coverage of it on the ground. So basically from whatever altitude, with whatever direction, whatever gimbal angle, here's the estimated coverage area for the combined images that we included. We have the actual locations of the drone when the images were taken, and then we have the areas of interest locations, again based on estimation from ground sampling distance and angles and all those sorts of things. So we have all that information that we can then provide back to the search coordinators or whoever needs it about our results from ADIAT. The other map export option is to go directly into CalTopo. So if I swap from KML file to CalTopo, I'm going to again turn that off just in the interest of time, because if we leave that on, it will include a lot of files or a lot of images. So turn off include images without flagged AOIs, and we leave include images on, and we go ahead and hit export. And there's a couple of ways we can export to CalTopo. So there's the recommended path if you have a CalTopo team account leveraging the CalTopo published APIs, which is a much better integration path, or we can do it through a browser. So for this purpose, because our team account is not one I'm going to share, I'll go ahead and say browser login. It's going to prepare the export information, and then it's going to take us into a pop-up browser window where you would have to sign in if you haven't already, and then select a map that you want to export into. We're going to do this into one I created called demo map, and we'll go ahead and open that. And we say I'm logged in, export the data, and that gets us back into ADIAT where it starts to make the calls to actually do the exporting. So it's starting the export process. We see here in the background, we're exporting the markers for all those images, as well as the coverage area. And because of the integration with CalTopo, we are able to actually export and import the images themselves. So not only the markers, but the actual images. Down here, I can press the C key and then create a circle representing our area of interest. Say yes, and that will pop up over in our panel here. For those created areas of interest, we do also provide the ability to delete those if it was created by accident and were no longer needed for some reason. So we can say delete. Yes, I'd like to delete this area of interest, and then we're back to our usual set. And that is what I wanted to cover in the viewer. So lots of great advancements, lots of contextual information provided through things like mapping, better exports, more tools available to us. And again, my favorite, the new gallery mode, which gives us that all image view all in one place. So instead of having to go image by image through the toolbar, the the thumbnail bar, down here, we can navigate and view all of the images, all of the areas of interest at once in this pane. That is where I will leave you for now. In our last video in this three-part series, we're going to take a look at the streaming analysis process, brand new to ADIAT version 2.0. And we'll see you there.